Everyone, welcome to the How to Theme Your Retro session. I'm Helena, a Creator Success Manager here at Miro, and today I'm joined by Dave Westgarth. I hope I pronounced your name right. I actually never checked if it was the right pronunciation, so apologies if it's not. Dave is a project manager, agile enthusiast. He's also a Miro community member and a Miroverse creator. He's created so many amazing templates. Please check them out. I'll drop a link in the chat. But yeah, let's start. Dave, please take it away.
Great. Thanks very much, Helena. And thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for coming along. As Helena touched on, I'm a project manager and I run a lot of retrospective meetings with my teams. So I'm hoping you guys are agile enthusiasts, project people who run these type of sessions with your teams. And this session is going to be all about themed retrospectives. So I'll zoom in a little bit. Few things I want to cover. Basically the what of themed retrospectives, what they are, the why, the reason why to do them, a few tips on putting them together and some board inspiration. Hopefully if we get time, a little bit of a slot to ask me anything and do a bit of a Q&A at the end. Before we start, I wanted to do a quick little bit of an icebreaker just to give you guys a flavour for what the session's going to be about. And we've got a choice of themed icebreakers. So what I'd like everyone to do is jump on the board, take a pin and drop that on the icebreaker that you want us to run in this session. We've got a choice of Star Wars, Dragon Ball Z or golf. So please jump in and I'll set a timer for, let's say, 30 seconds maybe. In fact, no, let's make it 20. We'll keep it punchy. Looks like we've got a clear winner already though.
Yeah, it seems like it, unless in the next 10 seconds something will drastically change.
Unless we're going to have a whirlwind for Rory McIlroy, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
Oh.
Mike's asking no music. Oh, well, for the next one, perhaps.
Maybe, yeah. Okay, let's go with Star Wars then. So I will bring this one over. And what you'll see is we've got what's called the Skywalker scale. So this is a bit of an open-ended, freehand version of an icebreaker where I ask you to take one of the lightsaber icons below and just plot that against the Skywalker scale that we've got here. And the question that you're going to be answering is, how are you feeling today at Miro Distributed 22? Are you feeling somewhere on the dark side with Vader? Or are you feeling somewhere a bit with a happier Anakin up at the top end? So take one of the icons, drop it on the board, and we'll see roughly where people are feeling. Looks like we've got a really good spread at the minute. Someone seems to be in the angry camp. Excellent, great. Really good spread, but no one at the very, very far end, which is good.
Yeah, everyone's doing more or less all right, which is good. Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, that's great. And these type of themed elements, themed questions, themed sessions are really what my talk's all about, taking some of the conventional retrospective formats or retrospective elements that you'd run in your sessions and putting a bit of twist on them. So for this one, we've done Star Wars, but really your imagination's your only limit, and we'll get into a little bit of that as we go. So covering off the what of a themed retrospective. For me, this gives you a bit of a fresh twist on meetings and sessions that you might have ran that are starting to become a little bit autonomous. Maybe there's a bit of autopilot setting in and you want to try and break that. For facilitators, this gives you another string to your racket, gives you another way to facilitate similar types of sessions. And the theming element of this really acts as a platform for a lot of other benefits that we'll get into in more detail as we go through the talk. The number one question I get asked with this is why bother? Because there's a lot of effort for facilitators to prepare these boards, meetings, formats. And the question I normally get asked is the time really worth the effort? For me, it keeps the meetings really engaging. One thing I find, especially with a lot of Zoom fatigue, is it's dead easy for people to turn the cameras off and just slip in the odd comment here and there in a meeting, but not really engage with the subject matter. The other really key one for me is removing the sort of repetitive nature of sessions. When you're part of a Scrum team or an Agile development team and you're running a retrospective once a week, once a fortnight, once a month, it really can quickly settle into a very steady cadence of, okay, we'll do a Mad, Sad, Glad, we'll do a 4Ls. And I'm a firm believer, if we keep asking the same questions for long enough, eventually we'll get the same answers back. Theming sessions with something fresh really helps to ask those questions in a different way or come up with new questions to keep the sessions engaging. The last one is strengthening team relationships. And for me, getting sessions like this and opening up an avenue where we can talk about things that aren't strictly work focused, where we can delve into team dynamics, people's hobbies outside of work, people's interests, the latest things on Netflix and the movies, the latest video games, really helps to help relationships within your team grow more organically and helps them become stronger. We'll get into these in a lot more detail as we go, but also want to cover a little bit of the reasons why we run themed retrospectives. So when we've gone remote, there's a lot of things that come with that. It's great working from home. A lot of people really love it, but there's a lot of things that we lose, especially in remote sessions, things like body language, shared contexts and spaces. Another common complaint I hear is a chat that would have taken me 2 minutes just jumping over the desk when we're in the office now means I need to carve out a half an hour Outlook slot with somebody to get a 2-second answer. And there's a general lower level of engagement on these remote sessions where we aren't making the eye contact, we haven't got the active listening. There's a lot that's lost in remote sessions that is worth noting. Also, Scrum But, and the reason I mention Scrum But is I find when people start to cut corners in Scrum, often I see the retrospective as the first thing that's looked at as expendable or the first thing that goes out of the window. It's dead easy for these sessions to become monotonous and autopilot in those remote sessions. And I think for management and leadership, it's easy to see this as a bit of a non-value add. But for me, the retrospective is the cornerstone of continuous improvement for teams. And this is the event in the Scrum framework that has the most intrinsic value to the team themselves as well. So really important to emphasize that the retrospective is the cornerstone of that continuous improvement initiative. And it is really the event where the team can look at improving themselves and make things better. Engagement's a big theme that I like to comment on. When we're running these sessions with similar styles, similar questions, similar formats, very easy for people to switch off, turn the cameras off, put their feet up and just let the session sort of wash over them. And this type of monotony and autopilot in those sessions is where complacency can set in and problems that maybe we should be making transparent and issues that we should be talking about can start to slip under the radar and maybe don't get the attention that they deserve. By adding these themes and keeping those questions fresh, by changing the format, even changing the visuals in and of themselves, it gives your participants something a bit more engaging to look at, something fresh to engage with, and keeps the conversation relevant and productive. Fun. I'm a firm believer that work can be fun if you let it be. There's elements of work where we can inject that element of creativity and really bring out the human side of the people in your team. I don't think fun should be taboo in work. There's no reason we can't enjoy what we do. There's no reason we can't enjoy interacting with the peoples in our team. The thing I really like to stress is creativity shouldn't be something that we do once a month for a 30-minute time box. Creativity, especially in the context of Agile and Scrum development teams, should be something that's sort of par for the course. This should be something that we embrace as a core practice and something that sort of naturally imbues and develops its way through our whole ways of working. So big plus for me on creativity and fun in the workplace. Also, the themed retros are great for building empathy within the team. And one element that I always like to build into the retro templates that I put together is an icebreaker, some kind of check-in or an ice melter. Again, as we've talked about, these get your teammates, your colleagues, your co-workers out of that lane of thinking we are here to just talk about work and that's it. This opens up an avenue where we can connect with each other on a more human level. Maybe not developing friendships within the team, but the relationship dynamic moves from being colleague to colleague to something that's starting to approximate a friendship or an acquaintanceship, which not only diversifies that relationship, but also strengthens it overall. Every team you work on will have sort of a culture within it. There'll be established sort of relationships already between seniors and juniors, between subject matter experts in different areas. And these are great for breaking down those sort of conventional silos and communication patterns within the team where maybe junior members who don't say much within the work context will really come to the fore if you've got a theme or a topic or some kind of question that they're really engaged and interested in. So yeah, lots of pluses on the empathy front. Creativity is the big one. For me, and I think a lot of people have seen this discussion that's sort of raged for a while now in Scrum and Agile, is a lot of the sessions do become the same, and a lot of the sessions become quite monotonous. And even things like the 3-question approach in the daily Scrum, while it's good for a while and it serves a purpose, especially for junior teams, after a while can start to become its own worst enemy. And what I like to do in these sessions, not just retrospectives, daily scrums as well, is I like to leave a lot hanging out there in the air for teams to jump on. So instead of saying maybe what was good, what was bad, we'll say, where were we performing really great work last sprint, and what was the biggest roadblock that if we went back we would remove? Just slightly changing those questions gets us different results, and it means it's more difficult for team members to jump into that autopilot frame of mind because they really need to pay more attention to the conversation that's happening. Moving forward, psychological safety has become a huge theme within Agile and Scrum at large. One thing I found with themed retrospectives and how they go hand in hand with psychological safety, by moving to more of a gamified or a characters conversational retrospective, we can give team members a role to play that sort of makes them an abstracted layer above themselves. So that's a lot of word soup. For example, I will do a Game of Thrones retrospective where we'll assign roles to people in the team. We'll say, for this retrospective, developer A is going to be Tywin Lannister, developer B is going to be Daenerys, developer C is going to be Tyrion, and so on. And instead of asking the questions to the developer themselves, I'll ask something like, what would Tyrion think if I asked him XYZ about the previous sprint? And by giving your team members that role to play, that character to embrace and embody, you allow them to be slightly more open, maybe speak a little bit more truth to power than they normally would, and really explore other elements of what they might not be comfortable signing off as with their own name that they're quite happy to do with a character that they're trying to embody. And through that openness, ultimately, we increase the trust within the team. The relationships go from strength to strength, and it's easier to uncover where we can make those improvements when we're getting that really high level of candor and honesty from people within the team. I've touched on this already quite a few times, but strengthened relationships, I think, are the goal on any project team, whether we're doing Agile, Waterfall, anything. And opening up this water cooler side of desk style chat with your team is a really rich vein to build that cohesiveness within the unit and get people more and more invested within the team themselves. The thing I really like about it is it removes the burden from the Scrum Master, the project manager, the Agile delivery lead to build that team dynamic and build the team culture. It lets a facilitator sort of hand over to the team and let them take the conversation the way they want to go and let those relationships build and develop more organically, instead of me putting half an hour in the calendar every week for team building. the team will be able to make more intelligent, more spontaneous, more creative decisions about how we do that ongoing team build and how we talk about things just beyond the pure work focus. So that's a lot around the why. The next thing I want to cover is theme selection itself, what sort of themes we can work with, and how you can leverage them in your sessions. So selecting a theme, this for me is probably the most fun and exciting part of the themed retrospective session. Getting a new idea, a member of your team may ask for a new TV show that came out on Netflix, gives you a really good excuse to just go and binge for a weekend and then figure out how you can retrofit that to a retrospective format. It lets you bring your team members into a different kind of experience, especially a shared one where we can talk about something, as I've said, outside of just the pure work context. One criticism I've seen of these is, do they always have to be nerdy or geeky? Personally, I am a bit of a nerdy person. I work in digital, I work in IT, and I've got all of the, I would say, the common personality traits that come along with that. But the reason I started doing these was because I saw a lot of video game, TV show, Star Wars type themes out there. The ones I really wanted to get to for my team were sports themes ones. And I've done loads around football, NBA, golf. So if you're looking out there and seeing themed retrospectives that seem a bit on the nerdy side, don't let that inhibit you from putting your spin on something that either is an interest of yours as a facilitator or something that your team you think would really rally around in a session. Final point on theme selection, sort of touched on it, but rotating the responsibility for who comes up with the theme and even crowdsourcing that with dot votes and tallies within the team gives you another vein for getting engagement in these sessions. If you're building a themed retrospective around a theme that either a team member or the whole team have crowdsourced and came together to select, you'll really feel the benefit of that when you run the session in terms of the engagement, the conversation, and the richer context in the session. When we look at mechanisms that we can use, all sorts, your imagination's your only guide, really. I just wanted to touch on 4 key ones that I use quite a lot. Characters are always great. I've touched on Game of Thrones, but we've done all sorts around Wolf of Wall Street, Harry Potter, anything with any characters and character dynamics and conversation we can leverage there. Quotes and lyrics, I do a lot of musical ones. Jay-Z was a really popular one, but again, quotes, any musical ones. I know Chris Stone has done them around a lot of 80s rock bands like Queen, and also Journey. So again, all sorts we can do there. And literature's another good one. Existing rules and formats. So I'm thinking here around games, sports, hobbies, anything that's got an existing structure that we can sort of build questions around is really helpful. For any sports heads, live sports here is a really effective one, and board games also great. And one that you'll probably see a lot of at the minute is the event-driven topical ones. We just came out the back of Halloween, where I saw quite a lot of Halloween-themed retrospectives. In between Halloween and Christmas, we also get Guy Fawkes Night, so there's a lot of firework-themed retrospectives. And I'm sure in the next month or so, there'll be lots around Christmas, New Year, resolutions, all that type of good stuff. So those are just a few options, but really your imagination's your only limit for what you choose to build your session around. A really good step when you start looking at doing these, and I encourage you all to give this a go, is doing a bit of a remix. So a retrospective, I'm sure most people on the call will be familiar with, is the Mad, Sad, Glad retrospective. What made us mad? What made us sad? Why were we glad? And I've thrown together here a really quick remix on this with Dwight Schrute from The Office. And just by changing the visuals on this, it gives the team something a bit more visually engaging, but also opens up that avenue for conversation around the show, quotes, other things that can generate more conversation instead of going back to the autopilot version that we've all seen and done to death slightly. Once we've done the remix, we look at creating something new, and we've just sort of done part of this, but this was the Star Wars one that I'd thrown together originally with the mood scale, with lightsabers, plotting that against the emotional check-in at the start. I've then taken quotes from characters in the show and the movies. We've got do or do not. There is no try from Yoda. Did we commit to anything we didn't do? What did we do effectively? We've got concentrate on the moment, don't think, trust your instincts. Are there any areas where we need increased focus? What distracts our attention? Just leaving different types of questions hanging out there in the air for the team. The final bit that I always like to build into all of my retro sessions is a little bit of feedback. So we get a rate the retro element where I'll ask the teams on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being brilliant, what did you think of the session? And that also helps as a facilitator for me to continue to amplify the things that have gone well in that session, and also either change, limit, or totally strip out and start again the elements that maybe didn't land as well for the next session. Another example I've put on here is the golf-themed retrospective. This was the other icebreaker that we could have touched on. So for this one, I'd ask the team to take a golf ball and place that somewhere on the golf course that they feel reflects our performance in the last sprint. And we get really interesting results here. We're in the drink, we're in the bunker, we're right on the tee, we've hit the green, we're on the fairway, we're on the right track and getting there. And doing these really open-ended emotional icebreakers, it's great just to run them, but then what I really like to do is I can see a collection of lightsabers in the happy area. Does anyone want to comment on why we've got a large concentration there? Alternatively, you can see I can see that we're sort of edging towards, we've got a lot of golf balls in and around the water in the bunker. Are there any sort of really immediate high-level challenges anyone wants to highlight before we go into the retro session proper? So yeah, just let your imagination be your limit here. Anything that you have an interest in, that the team has a shared interest in, I'm more than confident you could build this type of session around to generate that really high level of engagement and get that really rich and contextually rich feedback from the team. Lots of places to go for inspiration with this. We're at Miro Distributed. I'm sure you've all had a look on Miroverse at some point. I've linked to it in the board here. This is worth checking out for retrospectives and everything beyond. All sorts of facilitation and session planning templates. And if you want to outsource the work of putting the templates together, Miroverse is a really great place to go and have a look. Also, I've put together a link tree for the stuff that I've done. Again, the link's embedded in the board. If you're looking for themed retros specifically, I've done themed retros on all sorts of topics. I've listed a few of them here, but sports, movies, TV, all that good stuff. Have a look. I'm sure there'll be something there that someone in your team would resonate with someone in your team. I've also put a link to a few examples that I've done. Encourage you all to have a look on the board, click through to some of these links and just have a look at what I've put together. Maybe use that as a bit of a platform or a building block for you to put your own together moving forward. And sort of a final thing that I like to touch on in these sessions is embrace this with a truly agile frame of mind. It's very easy, and a criticism I get a lot is it's a little bit childish. We're here to work. We're not here to mess around and play. I really encourage you to run this as an experiment. Try it out. Give your teams a go. Measure what the responses are. As you're facilitating that session, try and notice, is this better than what we've done previously? Is there any improvement here? Is there anything that we could maybe change and get this even better? And then adjust from there. I'm not going to say that 100% of teams will engage with it and like it, but in the majority of teams that I've ran these for, the feedback's good, and it really feels like a breath of fresh air for teams who've been sort of subjected to those really standard repetitive sessions. And the final thing is from the Scrum Guide itself, that the purpose of the Sprint Retro is to plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness. And I really think by dialing up that level of engagement, increasing the strength of engagement from the team and spreading the relationship, making the ground more fertile for those relationships to grow, the increases in quality and effectiveness come quite naturally from that. It's been fairly whistle stop. I apologize, but I think I've left it just about right. Take a few questions if we have any. So,
brilliant timing, brilliant. I'm very impressed. Before we jump into questions, we have just 5 minutes. I just wanted to mention that a couple of people can't access the link tree, so maybe you can perhaps paste it here.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that was about it. Just wanted to mention before I forget.
Excellent. I'll paste that in the chat, and if I can, available in the chat for anyone that wants to have a look. But if you've got any feedback on anything you see on the link tree, anything you want explained, or anything you think can be better, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to take any feedback.
Cool. And there was one question earlier that caught my eye. Jessica asked, "What happens if not everyone has experience with the theme?"
It's an interesting one, and this is really why I advocate a crowdsource for it. But what I've often done is, if we get a theme that a lot of the team aren't familiar with, I'll ask them to do either a little bit of homework. Can you go and watch a couple of episodes? Can we share a couple of YouTube links? Can we even send them on Reddit a bit of a meme thread so they get a bit of an impression for what's going to happen? And for me personally, I quite enjoy it, especially as a facilitator. If I get a theme from the team that I'm not familiar with, it presents a bit of an interesting challenge, because as a facilitator, I've got to have the end in mind of the session, improving the quality and effectiveness and making things better for the team. And then retrofitting that to something totally new is a really interesting facilitation challenge. So really encourage you to give it a try. I mean, even if you just pick something that you're not familiar with for yourself and see, would I really be able to fit a session around something that maybe I'm not so familiar with?
Thank you. Dominic is asking, how long does your usual retrospective take?
Really good question. And I'm gonna give you sort of the stock Agile Coach Scrum Master answer. It depends largely. And the thing it depends on is the sprint cadence of the team. So if I'm running a retrospective for a development team that I work with day to day, we're in solid fortnightly sprints. We can maybe get through a retrospective in an hour and a half. Whereas if I'm running maybe a quarterly planning retrospective for director level C-suite teams who don't work together every day, who've got a lot to update on, those sessions can quickly expand to half day, full day operations. So sort of depends on the context of your team. And as a facilitator, try and play it by ear and look for where the engagement's high, where you get the dips, and can you get them back on track again throughout the life of the session. That's always a good guide.
Thank you. I'm looking at the comments. It's mainly praise, saying that you're freaking awesome. And Jessica said that this was the best session of the conference I've been to. Thanks, Dave, for your simple and effective techniques. And a lot of people are liking it. I know you can't see because you're sharing the screen, but I'm just here quoting the audience. A lot of likes. And Amanda saying, thanks for the generosity for sharing so many templates as well. And you're loving your inspirations.
Brilliant. Great feedback.
Thank you so much. I think we're going to wrap up because we are almost out of time. Thanks so much, Dave. This was brilliant. As you can see, our audience agrees. This was very inspiring, and I very much agree. Please, everyone, go to Dave's profile on Miroverse, check his link tree, his LinkedIn. I guess it was also linked. Well, I think it's just Dave David Westgarth. I don't remember exactly. I can also link it.
Yeah.
So please give us feedback if you have any, and we'll see you in the community, Miroverse. And if you do create any templates based on what you learned today, please reach out to Dave. I'm sure, Dave, you'll be very excited to find out, and I'll be very interested to find out too.
100%. Thanks very much for that, everyone.
And finally, Robert, thanks so much, duplicated the locked content, grouped it, and got the link. So everyone can access whatever they couldn't on the board.
I've still got a lot to learn on Miro. Apologies.
No worries. We all make the mistakes. It's like you either underlock or overlock.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
The reality. Thanks so much, Dave. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming. And we'll see you very soon. hopefully.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone.
Good day. Bye-bye. Thank you.